why we come. So it's a great opportunity. How you guys doing? Good? Good to be back. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I spent last weekend in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I try to go there after the summer or before the winter. But actually, if you know, I have a daughter that lives near Green Bay, and a son-in-law, and a grandson, and a soon-to-be granddaughter, but that's not the reason I went. I went to Milwaukee to do the eulogy and perform the gravesite service at a close friend and mentor of mine, a guy named Dick Wadowitz. I mentioned him a couple weeks ago. Here we are, Facetious. We're playing golf on his 90th birthday. It was a phenomenal play. We're playing golf in the rain. He wanted to get down there at all times. You can't see it's raining, but it is raining, and we had a great time out there. And I had the privilege of sharing the podium at his memorial service with several men who also consider Dick their close friend and mentor. You see, Dick was a basketball coach for many, many years. First in high school and then in college, and many of his players came to the memorial service and the graveside service. And it was packed. And it was packed. And what was clear from the very beginning is that Dick's influence reached far beyond the basketball court. I mean, every guy there who got up and spoke, and there were many, but every guy there could have touted Dick's impressive coaching record, which truly is impressive. He won many championships in college. When he was in high school, he only was a high school basketball coach for 12 seasons. He won 5 state championships in 12 seasons. And not at the same high school. You think, oh, okay, he got a juggernaut. No, he won 2 state championships in Georgia and 3 in Wisconsin. He's in the Milwaukee Sports Hall of Fame. He's in the Wisconsin Sports Hall of Fame. He coached the famous singer Al Jarreau. How many people remember jazz Al Jarreau, okay? He was a scrub on the team. He never actually got in the game, but he coached him, okay? He coached at the same high school that gave us Oprah Winfrey. And you go, oh, wow, all these things that he did. As an athlete, he won 2 national championships by himself in racquetball in his 50s and 60s. But all those things that I just mentioned were never mentioned at the memorial service. Not once. Not his record, not anything about him. Basketball was only mentioned as the platform from which Dick was able to show care and concern for each and every player that he coached. It was only mentioned as the platform that Dick used to share with them about what was most important in his life and what he thought was most important in life. One of his players, a guy named Max Walker, who's now in his 70s. There's Max back playing in high school for Lincoln High School in Milwaukee. And he won 2 of the state championships on those teams. And I got to meet him and the other guys. In fact, they invited me out. I'm going to go out next spring. We're all going to get together. We had a fun time, and I got to know most of the guys. But he spoke about the tremendous love and respect that they had, that each of Dick's players had for him, how much they wanted to please him, how he never yelled in practice at all. And I was a coach, and I yelled all the time. So he coached totally different from me. But he never yelled in practice, and all it took was a little glance of disapproval. And his players worked that much harder to be the best team that they could be. He told how Dick stayed involved in his life and in the lives of his kids after he graduated from high school. He told how the direction of his own life completely changed because of Dick's influence on him. And it wasn't because of Dick's great man-to-man defense. It was because of Dick's man-to-man question that he asked each of his players. Every player that played for Dick was asked this question: who is your God? Who is your God? It's a simple question. Maybe not one that high schoolers think about that too much. But who's in charge of your life? Who do you worship? What do you worship? Is it your sports ability? Because that's not going to last. Is it your good looks? Because that's debatable in the first place. Who is your God? And Max Walker said during this memorial service that question began a journey in his own life that ended with him putting his faith in the one true God and his son, Jesus Christ. One of the complaints that you hear a lot about in our society is that we live in a godless society. We've forgotten God, or we've knocked him out of society. We quit believing in him. We've kicked him out of our schools and out of our governments. We won't allow his name to be used in public debate. But here's the thing, and maybe you didn't know this. Statistically right now, America is more religious than it's ever been in its history. Did you know that? By far. By far. Only 3.5% of Americans now consider themselves atheists, which is the lowest percentage in history by far. In your face, Richard Dawkins. 3.5, that's it. The question for most Americans is not, is there a God? But who is your God? That's the question. Our culture loves to say that God is like a mountain. We hear that all the time. There's a little bit of truth in every religion. There's many paths to the top. Just take this from this religion and this from this religion and this from this religion. Whatever, there's your truth and my truth. But we're all on the same mountain. If we just took a step back and got perspective in all this, we'd all see that we're climbing the same mountain and there's all kinds of different paths, and it really doesn't matter which one you choose. You can go up one side and I'll take another path. And that kind of thing is in our media. That kind of thing is in movies. In fact, there was a movie several years ago that was nominated for 10 Academy Awards. Won, I think, 3 or 4 of them, including Best Director. It was called The Life of Pi. Don't know if you ever saw it. Don't know if you ever read the book. But it espouses that philosophy. I think I got a clip of it right now. Go ahead and play it.
The gods were my superheroes growing up. Hanuman, the monkey god, lifting an entire mountain to save his friend Lakshman. Ganesh, the elephant-headed, risking his life to defend the honor of his mother Parvati. Vishnu, the supreme soul, the source of all things. Vishnu sleeps floating on the shoreless cosmic ocean, and we are the stuff of his dreaming.
Spectacle. Don't let these stories and pretty lights fool you. Boys, religion is darkness.
My dear Appa believed himself part of the new India. As a child, he had polio. He used to lie in bed racked with pain, wondering where God was. In the end, God didn't save him. Western medicine did. My Amma went to college and thought her family was part of the new India as well, until her parents cut her off because they thought she was marrying beneath her. Her religion was the only link she had to her past.
God so loved this world that he gave his only son.
The longer I listened to the priest, the more I came to like this Son of God.
Thank you, Vishnu, for introducing me to Christ.
I came to faith through Hinduism, and I found God's love through Christ. But God wasn't finished with me yet. God works in mysterious ways. And so it was he introduced himself again, this time by the name of Allah.
And the whole movie follows this guy, Pi, who finds nirvana, finds the keys of life. And he started in Hinduism, then he went into atheism, and then Christianity, and then Islam. And he takes a little bit out of each one. And that's kind of the world we live in. That's what people think. That's the mountain that they climb. They put God together like a Lego toy. How many people have ever played Legos? You play Legos and you got to kind of put things, if you're building your own toy and you're not putting one together that's like on the front of the box, you got to do what you want. And that's kind of how we think we can build God. Here, this goes there, and I'll put this here, and this color here, and this kind of thing. And that's how people think you build God, only attaching the things that you like, only attaching the things that work for you. I got my truth, you got your truth. But this extremely dangerous and destructive idea of making your own God, it makes what we're going to study over the next several weeks that much more important and that much more relevant. Today we begin a series called Greater Than. And until this week, I really hadn't actually thought of the greater than symbol since probably high school was the last time I used a greater than symbol. You know, I never write a check that says greater than 10,000. I don't want people to spend greater than on my checks, so maybe I'll start using less than. That would be good. But I don't see that symbol too much, but I thought it's a great visual for our life and our God. You see, those of us who consider ourselves Christian, those of us who believe in the God of the Bible, believe that He's the one true God, we don't subscribe to a philosophy that says there's many gods, there's many ways to climb this mountain, you just make up your own God. All roads lead to the top of the mountain. We don't just subscribe to that. We believe there's only one God, the God of the Bible. And He is greater than all other gods. And a life devoted to Him is greater than all other lives. And because of what He did for us, we have an eternity that is greater than all of our eternities. Amen? We believe in a greater than God, in a greater than life, in a greater than eternity. That's what we believe. So why do we settle for less than? Why do we settle for less than? If we believe all that stuff I just said, why is it that our lives don't look perceivably different than the lives of those who believe in many gods and you just choose your own and well, let's build our own God? I think the whole Christian church needs to ask itself that question, but I'm not really that concerned with the whole Christian church. I'm concerned with the church right here in Compass, which includes myself. I believe in many cases we're missing out. I really do. I believe that our greater than God is waiting to do things in your life and in my life that are greater than anything we could possibly imagine. When I look at a guy like Dick Wadowitz, my mentor, and I see the greater than life that he lived because he worshiped a greater than God, I see this little man, not a very big man at all, and his fingers, if you saw his fingers, he had fingers that kind of went sideways and this and that, and people would look at him and go, a sports god here? A guy that just loves? Not possible. But he used sports just as a platform. And he lived a greater than life. Just by his memorial service, you look at all the people that he impacted. God multiplied what he can do so he could live that greater than life because he worshiped the greater than God. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an in-depth study of the lives of two fascinating Old Testament characters. I don't know if you've ever studied them before. Great characters, Elijah and Elisha. Wonderful characters that I wanted to do this study because they're guys who were raised up at a time when Israel finally had to consider the question, who is your God? Before this time, they knew. Before this time, they only had one God. But when Elijah and Elisha came to prominence, Israel was no longer just one God. And so God brought them together. And we're going to see that they lived a greater than life because they worshiped a greater than God. So let me start by giving you some historical context. The nation of Israel, of course, was founded on monotheism. That's what we call one God, monotheism. It's a big word. One God, Israel's God, Yahweh. For years and years and years and years, centuries, that was it for Israel. But a civil war split Israel into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was Israel, and the southern kingdom was Judah. And both kingdoms were ruled predominantly by bad kings. And I put up a little graph here to show you all the kings. All the bad kings are in red. All the good kings are in green. And what should kind of jump out at you is the northern kingdom, Israel, had no good kings. Zero. None. They had 19 straight ungodly kings spanning a time frame of about 250 years between 931 BC and 712 BC. Over 2 centuries of bad kings. That's not a fairy tale, that's real life history. documented history outside the Bible and in the Bible. 19 years of horrible kings. And the worst king they ever had, a king who ruled for over 20 years in the northern kingdom, was a man named Ahab. He's on that list. And the Bible says this about Ahab. In 1 Kings chapter 16, it says, Ahab, the son of Omri, did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, even more than any of the kings before him. He was a real peach of a guy. He was about as wicked as they possibly come, and he doubled down on wickedness. Why? He married the most wicked person he could find, a cute little thing from a neighboring nation of Sidon. Her name may ring a bell. Jezebel was Ahab's wife. And we still use that in our vernacular today for an evil woman. Well, that's where it came from. The most evil king, Ahab, married the most evil woman, Jezebel. And Jezebel brought her favorite gods into Israel. Asherah, the goddess of fertility and love. Baal, the sun god. And she set up temples for them. And this was at a time when Israel was so far away from God. After decades of bad kings, after decades of forgetting about God, they went along with Jezebel. Primarily because these man-made gods of stone and metal and wood, they promised prosperity and protection. So they said, come on, bring them all in. Let's bring all these gods in. But the worship of these gods drove people to very dark places that included mutilation and child sacrifice. And we hear stuff like that. We used to, when I was growing up, we didn't even understand all that. We go like, man, that's in a book somewhere. I can't even understand that. We think, how could a nation, how could a people sink that low? The only thing we could think of is Nazis, right? We go right to Nazis. We go, I guess that's it. But then there's today. And today, our nation's current embrace of lies and corruption and wickedness and its violent disdain for truth and the people who tell it. If there's anything good about what we're living at today, I think it wakes up those of us who are followers of Jesus Christ. It wakes us up to say, man, now I know how a people can collectively listen to lies, how a people can collectively go down a dark hole. And now we look at this kind of thing like what Jezebel and Ahab did for Israel, and we think, I could see how that could happen. And maybe, just maybe, true followers of Jesus Christ will stop blending in. Because that's what our tactic has been for decades. Let's just blend in. Let's just be like everyone else. Let's don't make waves. And now we're starting to think, has that brought anybody closer to the peace that passes all understanding? Has it? Has that brought anyone closer to the one true God? In any society that trades the one true God for idols of their own making, can descend into anything, even complete chaos. And we see some of that today, and we're starting to wake up. And that's why these Old Testament stories are so relevant, even though they're 3,000 years old. And as Jezebel gained more power, she slaughtered hundreds of pastors and priests and prophets and put in her own, talking about Baal and talking about Asherah. And for the first time in Israel's history, it became a pluralistic society. In other words, many gods, representing many desires, indulging many fantasies. And Baal, we call him the sun god, but Baal's more of a title. Baal wasn't a god. There were many Baal gods. There was the Baal god of medicine, and the Baal god of harvest, and the Baal god of financial success. And especially relevant for our talk today, the Baal god who controlled nature, the rain god and the sun god. So you see, pluralism isn't new. We can sometimes think, hey, it's something we invented in our highly sophisticated global society today. It's been around for centuries and centuries and centuries. It's as old as the world itself. The idea that there's multiple gods and you just have to find one that works for you, it's been around since the beginning of the Bible. It's not new. And that's why this is a great series to bring a friend to. It's a great series. I'm willing to bet that most of you have friends in your life or coworkers in your life that believe in a God. And they just haven't figured out who that God is. And they believe that kind of the what I call the, why can't we all get along kind of God. Why can't we just all, all these religions, Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam, why can't we just all get along? Christianity, why does it have to be exclusive? Kind of we're all just believe in God. I bet you have friends that believe that. It's a great time to bring them here. You know somebody like that. And they're asking the question, which God is the right one? This is a great series to answer that. We'll be in the series for 8 weeks. And next Sunday couldn't be a better time to invite friends who are trying to make sense of all the gods that people worship. And maybe you're here this morning and you yourself are one of those people. If you looked at yourself honestly, you'd say, yeah, I'm one of the people who aren't convinced that there's only one God or that the Christian God is the one true God. I'm just one of those people. Maybe you like the idea of a build-it-yourself God. You like that. I like the Buddhist meditation, and I like the Hindu parties. Those are really cool. And I like that forgiveness part in Christianity. I'll take some of that too. I like all these things. And can't we just put them all together? I'm glad you're here. I really am. What I want to start by doing is gently and lovingly challenge your perspective a little bit. Because when people say all religions are the same, it's just like they're saying, about people from a certain race. You know what? They all look the same. Or they all act the same. And we think that's stupid nowadays. We think, well, you must not know anybody from that race if you think they all look the same or act the same. I showed you a few months ago, I went to a church over, it was a Congolese refugee church. And they thought I looked like Jean-Claude Van Damme. They thought white people all look the same. And we look at that now, we laugh, and we think, okay. But it's the same thing when you say, well, all religions are the same, or all gods are the same. It means you're not paying close attention. It means that you really don't know the religions that well, because they contradict each other. And Christianity contradicts all of the other religions and isn't like any of the other religions. And I want to invite you to consider what the Bible says about God and the uniqueness of God. And the history we'll be looking at presents clear evidence of why the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, is the one true God. And look at that evidence and then make your decision, because it's your decision. But I'm glad you're here to do that. I want you to all, if you have your Bibles, to turn to 1 Kings 17. If you don't have your Bible, we'll have the verses behind me. Or you can get on a phone. There's a bunch of free Bible downloads for apps. You can get those. What we're going to see is in this new pluralistic society that happens in Israel, because all these gods were brought in, as God sends a man named Elijah. And Elijah's name actually means the Lord is God, which kind of gives away the punchline of his life. The Lord is God. God uses Elijah to identify to Israel which God is the real God. In answer to the question, who is your God? Elijah was sent to show everyone that the Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob, the God of Joseph, is the one true God. And here's what's encouraging to me before we get any further. When God wants to do something, he doesn't send an army to do it. Have you ever noticed that? Anywhere in the Bible. He never sends an army. You know what he sends? A woman or a man. One woman or one man every time. He doesn't send an army. We see that all through the Bible. And guess what? What you see in the Bible, we worship the same God today, which means that's how he works today. He doesn't send armies. He sends one man. He sends one woman. And that's who he's going to send today. And for those of you who are already convinced that there's one true God, your first responsibility is to bring that skeptical friend. That's your first responsibility in the series. Bring that skeptical friend or coworker here. Let them come and hear. And then take them out to lunch afterwards and pay for lunch. And try to answer their questions. And if you can't, bring them back the next week. So we'll give them an idea of what the Bible says about that whole idea of can't we just all get to that same top of the mountain? But your second responsibility, if you already believe that there's one true God, is to pay close attention. Because I believe that God is going to choose Elijahs out of this church. He's going to make a bunch of Elijahs that stand up, maybe sometimes alone, in their world, whatever world you live in, stand up and be noticed. Stand up and stand for truth in whatever circle of friends you have, whatever family you have, whatever workplace you go to. Stand tall for integrity or purity or truth. We're going to start today. We're going to look at how God prepared Elijah to be the one that stands for him. And what you're going to see is that the stories of Elijah, they go from big picture, how God works in the world through Elijah, and then it immediately gets narrowed down to how God is working in Elijah's heart. So it's almost like Google Maps. You ever been on Google Maps where you get them on your phone and you can kind of squish them, you can take them and get them narrowed down right to where you want to go. Starts big picture, goes to small picture. That's how the life of Elijah is described in the Bible. It goes from big picture to small picture. Listen as it narrows down. We're going to start in 1 Kings chapter 17, right from the top of the chapter, verse 1. It says this, Now Elijah, who was from Tishbe in Gilead, told King Ahab, As surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, the God I serve, there will be no dew or rain during the next few years until I give the word. That's big picture. That's what God's doing through Elijah. What is he doing through Elijah? He's picking a fight. He's picking a fight. You see, one of the main gods of Jezebel is the Baal that controls nature, the Baal of rain and the Baal of sun. So God sends Elijah into Baal's house and basically calls him out on his own turf, confronts him on his own turf, shames him on his home court. Elijah walks in and says, Ahab, your pathetic God doesn't control anything. Doesn't control anything. My God does. You think your rain God is something special. But the rain won't come, what does he say? Until I say so. Because I follow my God. For those of you taking notes, that's Godly Trash Talk 101. And that's the big picture. Verse 1. Quickly it narrows down. Verse 2. Then the Lord said to Elijah, Go to the east and hide by the brook Cherith, near where it enters the Jordan River. Drink from the brook and eat what the ravens bring you, for I have commanded them to bring you food. So Elijah did as the Lord told him and camped beside the brook Cherith, east of the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat each morning and evening, and he drank from the brook. Now, first of all, this is just more proof that godly people eat meat. You vegans out there, pfft. Godly people eat meat. Because also almost all the time, look it up, all the time in the Bible, when God hand selects the menu, it includes meat. Amen? For you meat eaters? Okay, it's good. It's not actually the main point of this passage, but I threw that in for bonus. But here we see that after God works through Elijah to show the world that he's greater, big picture, he now shows Elijah how to live the greater than life. I call it the lesson of complete dependence. It's a lesson we'll all learn somehow or other. The lesson of complete dependence. You see, Elijah was a man who always took care of himself. Got a job, made the money, used that money to feed himself, to clothe himself, to give himself shelter, take care of his need. But then God takes that all away and puts him in a place where he has to depend on the special provision from God for even the most basic things. The food he eats and the water he drinks. He's like a baby. You know, a baby sits in there, they got to wait for mom or dad to come feed him. And that's where he makes Elijah. Puts him right there. And it's interesting, the brook that God placed Elijah by is called Cherith. And I don't think there's any coincidences in the Bible. There's a reason why the Bible says this is the brook of Cherith. In Hebrew, Cherith literally means to cut down. To cut down. God's saying, Elijah, I'm going to cut you down. I'm going to cut you down. I'm going to remove any strength you think you have in yourself. Anything that you think you can use to take care of your basic needs. I'm going to teach you to depend completely on me. If you're taking notes, write this down. Before God can use us, he must first break us. Before God can use us, he must first break us. Boy, that's hard to hear, isn't it? It's even harder to experience. Sometimes God does this to you and you can't figure out what he's doing. Why, God? Many of you are probably thinking that this morning. Why, God? Why this? Why at this time? Why, God? Why is this happening? Maybe that's where a number of you are this morning, right now. Somebody let you down. A friend or family member. Something you depended on got taken away. A talent. Your health. A steady stream of income. Now you're facing the prospect of a future without something that you thought would be there. And God was doing this to Elijah as a way to prepare him for what? A greater than life. Not a less than life, a greater than life. And God does it to us for the same reason. A.W. Tozer, a great writer, I don't know if you ever read any stuff, great writer. He said this one time, before God can use a man greatly, he must first hurt him deeply. I hate that quote. I hate it. But it's true. God prepares us for the greater than life by removing false idols and distractions and things that we thought we could count on to live life ourselves. If I have this, I can do everything. And he removes them. Sometimes one by one, sometimes all together, so that we can totally depend on him. It's interesting, so often we say, I really want to be blessed by God. I hear people say that all the time. I want to get in a situation where I'm blessed by God. But are we willing to go down this path? Because this is the path to be blessed. It's like the story of the bird flying south for the winter, and this bird gets up and he starts flying a little late. It's a little late in the year. He got distracted by something, so he takes off for the south, and it's cold by the time he's up there. And so he gets in the middle of a snowstorm, and then he gets ice on his wings, and when he got ice on his wings, he couldn't fly anymore, so he does a crash dive, down, boom, and he hits the ground, and he's down there, oh man, I can't move, I got all this ice, I'm going to freeze to death down here. Suddenly a cow comes along and poops on him. The bird's like, are you kidding me? This is going from bad to worse. I'm down here, I can't fly. Now a cow comes by and poops on me. But the poop warms the ice and thaws the ice. And all of a sudden the bird realizes he can fly again. And he gets so excited, and he starts to chirp, and he starts to sing, but his song attracts a cat who comes and pulls him out of the poop and then eats him. Touching story, isn't it? 3 lessons we can learn from in that story. Lesson number 1. Not everyone that drops manure on you is your enemy. Lesson number 2, not everyone who pulls you out of the manure is your friend. Lesson number 3, when you're in the manure, sometimes it's not helpful to do anything but keep your little chipper shut. Amen? Yeah, it's good. Now, I know that for some of you, that's the only thing you'll remember about this sermon. I know that. True. Yes. What was that sermon about? That's some bird that got stuck in some poop somewhere. It was an Old Testament story. The point is that you may feel like someone that's dropped poop on your life right now, right? Right? Yeah? Life is, yeah, right. But it's precisely at that time that God is in work in you. In your disappointment, in your pain, removing what you rely on to make you trust in him completely so that you can live a greater than life. See, Elijah's strength wasn't his greatest asset. Elijah's strength was his enemy. Sometimes we miss that. Greatness comes in weakness with God. Let me say that again so you don't miss that. Greatness comes in our weakness when God's involved. God often makes us weak so we can discover true strength, which is only in him. The Apostle Paul said it this way. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, he says, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest in me." How crazy is that? Think about that. That's why I love the Bible. How crazy is that sentence? Boasting about your weaknesses. When's the last time you did that? When's the last time you said, "Yeah, I suck at this"? We don't do that. Ask yourself this. Where has God made you weak right now? Financially? Relationally? Maybe you're single and you want to be married. Maybe you're struggling with blended parenthood. Maybe there's some skill that you lacked. Maybe he removed an opportunity that you thought was yours. It was right in your grasp, and now it's gone. When I was in my 20s, before I had kids, it was after college, we moved to a new town, and my whole life, I don't know this about you, some of you are athletes, you know this, everything that I did revolved around sports. Everything. My dad was a high school football coach. I played sports. Everything revolved around sports. All my friends I got was because I played sports. Every friend. I can't remember a friend that I didn't have that wasn't on a team somewhere or something like that. In my 20s, we moved to this new town, and I want to make friends easily, and my go-to move is, okay, is there any sports teams at this church or whatever? And somebody stood up in front of the church, I still remember, and they go, "Hey, we got a church softball team. Anybody want to play? Let's go. We're going to meet here. We're going to have a game." Great. So I'm thinking, great, this is a great time. I go out there to play. It's actually a game. It's not even, they didn't even have practice first. It was just, churches don't need practice, I guess. We got God, so, we're strong in our weakness, right? So we get out there, and someone knew me from something. I can't remember. I said, "Oh, you played college ball, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, baseball, not softball, but I think I could play softball." Anyway, we get out there on the field, and we're just warming up. And I get the softball. This is my first throw. I get the softball, and I go, "Ah!" And the ball drops 2 feet from me. And I'm thinking, "Oh, man, just got a kink in there. I'll pick this up." So I pick it up, throw it again. Ow! I couldn't throw the ball over 2 feet. Turns out there was something wrong with my rotator cuff that I hadn't taken care of. And I hadn't played since college and didn't know it was there until I got there. And I'm thinking, this is great. God just dropped manure on me. How am I going to suppose? Because here's these guys thinking, "You played college ball? You're terrible. You can't do anything." God was preparing me at that time for this job right here. You know why? In churches, not everybody plays sports. There are people that like different things. I didn't know it at the time. I was ticked at the time. But I didn't know how to make relationships outside of sports. You know what else God was preparing me? Not just for this role as a pastor, he was preparing me as a parent. Because I didn't know at the time, I'd have 3 daughters. Now, it doesn't mean that women can't be good in sports. What it means is my 3 daughters can't be good at sports. They don't even like sports. They can't stand when I turn on the TV and it's a sporting event. My wife will test this, I watch TV from 4 to 6 in the morning because I recorded it the night before. Just so I won't have it on when that. You know what my kids like? They like to dance. They like to sing. They like to shop. God was preparing me to be a dad and be along with these 3 girls who are the love of my life. But it was during that time where I go, oh my goodness, I'm still in my 20s and I can no longer throw a simple baseball. I no longer can play a sport I love. I no longer could do anything. And he took that all away from me. And in that one instance, in that church, I had to start making friends with people who didn't play sports. And I got to know some people who I still genuinely love today that built into my life that I never would have met before because they weren't on the softball team. Because I started doing other things. Maybe it's that way with you. God has led me to the brook Cherith many times in my life. He's cut me down, and then he's built me back to be much stronger. And if you think about it, those of you who understand the whole weightlifting thing, that's what weightlifting does. You know what that? Weightlifting breaks down your muscles. That's what it does. It breaks down your muscles, so when you eat something, whatever, meat, by the way, okay. It actually builds you up. It builds you up. This is spiritual weightlifting. There is greatness in weakness. Say that with me. There is greatness in weakness when God's involved. God uses us most in our weakness. Have you ever prayed for God? Think about it. Have you ever prayed for God to take away temptation? God, why am I still tempted by this? The same sin I'm still tempted by. Why? Take it away from me. And he doesn't. Been there? And he doesn't. And you're thinking, why is this? That's God keeping you at a point of weakness in your life so that you completely depend on him. I realize that the reason that God lets me continue to struggle with certain sins that I have that come back and back, certain temptations that I have that come back and back, you know what he's telling me? Hey, Drew, you're not a Superman. I didn't put you in the pastor role so you can stand up on Sunday and say, hey, look at what I'm like. Now just follow me and you'll be fine. It's not what God wanted. God wanted somebody who was up here who was broken, like me, who could stand up and tell you, you know what? I know what you're going through. But here, let me tell you about the grace that I found in the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen? God doesn't want Supermen. You know what he wants? Broken men and women who completely depend on him. God takes weakness and turns it into strength. Because that's where his glory is seen. Because that's where his power is evident. Jesus said it this way, Matthew 5. Blessed are the, say that with me, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven. I don't know about you, but I never wanted to be poor in spirit in anything. Did you? Never wanted to be poor in spirit. I wanted to be middle class at least in spirit. Never poor in spirit. You know, middle class. Middle class are the people that you know, I grew up lower middle class. Middle class are the people that strive. The little class are, you know, the little engine that could. Dig deeper. Yeah. That kind of thing. Try harder. You can do it. But God's treasures are found in our weakness, not our strength. The greater than life is found not through us scratching and clawing to the top. It's found through our brokenness. And we see that starting with our salvation, don't we? You realize that the reason God saved you is not because you climbed the moral ladder to some place where God said, whoa, look at them. They deserve to get into heaven. That's pretty good. That's not why. If you are saved, it's because you came to a point where you said, I'm not worthy. I have no righteousness. I have no rights in heaven. And through the poverty of spirit that you demonstrated, God picked you up. Said, it's okay. I know you can't do it, but I can. My strength will show in your weakness. Through your weakness, God gave you a greater than eternity. There's a pastor named Adrian Rogers, and he stood up one Sunday and he said, you know him, it's great. He stood up one Sunday and he said, I want everybody in the congregation, just listen up real quick. If you, and you don't have to do this, but this is what Adrian said. He said, if you were like valedictorian of your high school, I want you to stand up. Several people did. He said, if you got an academic scholarship to college, I want you to stand up. A few more people did. He goes, you know, if you were on a championship sports team and you played, if you were first string on your high school team, whatever that was, stand up. A few more people did. He said, how many people were homecoming king or homecoming queen? If you were homecoming king, I want you to stand up. A few people did. And he went over this list of who's who's. And there was about 35% of the audience that stood up. And he looked at the people who were standing up and he said, I got some good news and bad news for you who are standing up. He said, the good news is this: God can still use you too. That's the good news. The bad news is you're not his first choice. Sometimes we don't think about that. God doesn't use our strengths. Look at anybody in the Bible. Anybody. God never used their strengths. What did he use? Their weaknesses. Their weaknesses. God really isn't interested in displaying your strengths. He's the one that gave them to you. But he isn't interested. He's interested in displaying his strength through your weakness. God chooses the weak to shame the strong, the Bible tells us. He chooses the poor to embarrass the rich. That's why Paul says, rejoice in your weakness. And the flip side of that is, beware of your strengths. Beware of your strengths, because those are the places you're most likely to forget God. Beware of your strengths, because those are the places you're most likely to forget God. Which is why God led Elijah to the brook Cherith, so that in his weakness, he'll remember God. And the greater the weakness, the greater the opportunity God has to display his power. We're going to see that next week when we continue with verse 7. Because God takes Elijah even further down to the weakest of the weak before he does an incredible miracle in his life. Let me point out something about the miracles of God. Maybe you didn't know this. Miracles of Jesus. And this may be obvious, but sometimes it's the ridiculously obvious, the painfully obvious that we miss. Every miracle that God did, every single one, every miracle that Jesus did, every single one, it fixed a problem. It fixed a problem. God is not about magic tricks. Jesus didn't come out and say, hey, let me show you that I'm God by what I do. Here you are. I'll take Peter and I'll make him fly around the Sea of Galilee. Woo! That would have been cool, right? Never did it. Never did it. Might be impressive, but that's not how God operates. Miracles came out of problems. You know what that means? If you came here with problems, you're a candidate for God's miracle. Amen? If you came here with problems, you're a candidate for God's miracles. Now maybe there's a whole bunch of you who are still in that middle class of spirit. Not poor in spirit, middle class in spirit. And you can handle any kind of little problems you have right now, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Bad news, you're not a candidate for a miracle. You're not. Simple as that. In fact, you should come up here after service, and I'll lay my hands on you and pray for you that a big enough problem will come into your life so that you can be a candidate for a miracle, okay? You can come up here afterwards. I'd love to do that for each of you. Write this down. There is greatness waiting in your weakness. There is greatness. The greater than life is waiting in your weakness. That's so countercultural to us. But that's the God of the Bible, the greater than life. Jesus went to the grave of your marriage, the grave of your financial situation, the grave of your strained relationships, the grave of your health. And he emerged victorious. Not you, he did. He will go anywhere with you. That's why he went to the grave. Not just to beat death, but as a symbol for what he can do in your life. And you might think you're going through the grave right now, or somebody pooped on you. And God's there, and he can emerge victorious, not you. The Christian God is the God who helps the weak. Amen? He helps the weak. Every other God rewards the strong. Every other God, look at every other religion. Every other one, it's what you do. Every other God rewards the strong. If you do this, you'll get to this level of heaven or this heaven or whatever. The Christian God helps the weak. The Christian God is the God who says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The Christian God is a God who died on a cross to pay the penalty for our sin because we couldn't get there ourselves. And we get there based on his gift and not our righteousness because we don't have any. The Christian God is unlike any other God concocted by man. Amen to that? Amen? And he's looking for ordinary people with complete dependency and unconditional surrender and extraordinary confidence in him, not in their own gifts or strengths. So sometimes he tears us down to produce that. God wants to fill your life with his power and his miracles. So sometimes he takes you to a place so that you can live a greater than life. There is greatness waiting in your weakness. Amen? Let's pray.